Imagine holding in your hands a weapon so powerful it could end a war in a single instant. Hidden in secret labs across the United States, top scientists worked day and night, racing against time, fear, and the unknown. No one outside knew the stakes, and even within the project.
It was 1942, and the world was engulfed in chaos. Europe had fallen under the shadow of tyranny, and the Pacific War raged with unprecedented ferocity. Amid the roar of global conflict, the United States faced a race against time, against imagination, and against the unknown. Intelligence reports had begun to hint at a terrifying possibility. Nazi Germany, with its brilliant scientists, might develop a weapon so powerful it could end wars in a single strike. The US could not allow that to happen. Thus began what would become the most secretive and ambitious project in the history of warfare, the Manhattan Project. This was not just a military operation. It was a gamble with reality itself, a venture into the very atom, the core of matter, the building block of everything humans had ever known. In a series of remote, hidden facilities scattered across the country, from Los Alamos in New Mexico to Oak Ridge in Tennessee and Hanford in Washington, the government marshaled the finest minds the world had ever seen. Scientists, engineers, and soldiers were brought together under an oath of silence so strict it bordered on the unbelievable. They were tasked with doing the impossible, splitting the atom and releasing a power that had never before been harnessed. The secrecy was absolute. Letters were censored, conversations monitored, and even spouses often didn't know what their partners were working on. Entire towns sprouted overnight, disguised as innocuous military or scientific installations. Oak Ridge, for example, became home to a workforce of tens of thousands who didn't know what they were building, only that it was vital to the war effort. The air was thick with tension and urgency. Every day, the scientists in Los Alamos faced calculations that could kill them or destroy the world if they erred. Physicists like Robert Oppenheimer, Enrico Fermi, and Niels Bohr wrestled with equations that seemed abstract and impossible, yet the consequences were terrifyingly real. There were failures, setbacks, and near catastrophes that could have derailed the entire project. For months, the experiments seemed to progress more by faith than by certainty. Even the concept of critical mass, the precise point at which a nuclear chain reaction could sustain itself, was untested on the scale they required. One miscalculation could obliterate the laboratory, the surrounding desert, or worse, entire cities. Meanwhile, the rest of the world remained unaware of the magnitude of what was unfolding. Ordinary Americans went about their daily lives, oblivious to the fact that in the sands of New Mexico, humanity was standing at the brink of a new era. The suspense built steadily. Rumors of miracle weapons circulated among military brass, but none could imagine the scale, the brightness, or the devastation of what was about to happen. July 16, 1945, arrived, a day that would forever etch itself into history. In the remote Jornada del Muerto desert, a specially constructed tower rose above the barren ground, carrying atop it a sphere of plutonium, the core of what would become the first nuclear explosion. Scientists, military personnel, and select officials watched with a mixture of fear, awe, and disbelief as the countdown began. T-minus 10 seconds, the voice crackled over radios. In that moment, silence fell over the desert. Every eye was fixed on the tower, every heartbeat synced to the ticking clock. Then, in a fraction of a second, a blinding flash erupted, brighter than 1,000 suns, so intense that it turned night into day across the desert. A mushroom cloud, massive and terrifying, soared into the sky, a harbinger of a new world. Those who witnessed it were forever changed. Scientists shielded their eyes, some fell to their knees, while others whispered prayers to a god they weren't sure even existed. The blast's power was incomprehensible. 17 kilotons of TNT unleashed in a heartbeat, capable of obliterating an entire city. It was at that moment that Robert Oppenheimer famously recalled a line from the Bhagavad Gita. "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." The test, codenamed Trinity, proved that the bomb worked. The impossible had been achieved. Humanity now held in its hands a power that could decide the fate of nations in an instant. The world did not yet know what had happened, but the implications were clear to those present. America had gained a weapon so powerful, so devastating, that it would change the nature of warfare forever. Within a month, the decision was made to deploy the bomb against Japan. Hiroshima, a bustling city of over 350,000 people, was chosen as the first target. On August 6, 1945, a B-29 bomber named Enola Gay soared into the sky, carrying the bomb nicknamed Little Boy. The world held its breath, though none of the civilians below had any idea of the fate approaching them. At precisely 8:15 a.m., Little Boy detonated above the city, releasing a firestorm that consumed everything in its path. Buildings evaporated, streets vanished, and tens of thousands were killed instantly. The world had witnessed the unthinkable. 3 days later, a second bomb, Fat Man, was dropped on Nagasaki, sealing Japan's surrender and effectively ending World War II. The Manhattan Project, a venture that had begun in secrecy and uncertainty, had forever altered the trajectory of history. Yet, beyond the statistics, beyond the numbers and military strategy, there was a human story of awe, fear, and moral reckoning. The scientists who created the bomb were celebrated, yet haunted by the knowledge that their invention had caused unimaginable death. Military leaders hailed the weapon as a savior that could end the war quickly, but even they understood that the world would never look at warfare, or humanity, the same way again. Historians today look back and realize that the Manhattan Project was not just a story of engineering brilliance. It was a story of human ambition, curiosity, and the terrifying consequences of pushing the boundaries of nature. It was a tale of secrecy, tension, and ultimate revelation, a saga in which the United States of America, by combining intellect, courage, and ruthless efficiency, shocked the world with a force that could not be ignored, a bomb that reshaped geopolitics, warfare, and the imagination of humanity forever. It reminds us that behind every historical statistic lies a story of individuals, scientists, soldiers, and leaders, whose decisions reverberate across generations. The Manhattan Project was a testament to human ingenuity, and also a warning that the pursuit of power without understanding its consequences can unleash forces beyond control. Even today, as nations discuss nuclear deterrence, stockpile treaties, and global security, the shadow of Trinity looms large, a reminder of what happens when humanity dares to play with the building blocks of existence. In the end, America's secret bomb was more than just a weapon. It was a symbol of the thin line between triumph and devastation, between scientific achievement and moral responsibility. It was a moment when history itself held its breath, when the world was forced to confront the limits of human power, and when one secret project in the deserts of New Mexico forever changed the way nations and people viewed the ultimate cost of war. The legacy of the Manhattan Project is still felt today, in diplomacy, in military planning, in science, and in the collective memory of humanity. It is a story that combines suspense, intellect, courage, and terror, a story that is at once deeply American and profoundly human, a story that shows how history is shaped not just by battles fought with weapons, but by ideas, ambition, and the willingness to push the boundaries of the possible. And so, as we reflect on the secret bomb that shocked the world, we remember that history is not just about events, but about the people who dared to create, to risk, and to confront forces far greater than themselves. The Manhattan Project remains one of the most extraordinary chapters